Hello, everyone. My name is Gary Gomes. I'm here to talk about astrology, namely Vedic astrology, world events, location of where world events will occur, and also to give you an overview of astrology as a chart. We'll talk about remedial measures today, and we'll also talk about the recent episode um, in the hot topic in the news this past week about number one, the acquisition of Twitter by Elon Musk, and number two, the founding of the Disinformation Board by the U.S. government. It's interesting because it seems like, I'm going to show you my face. It seems like whenever one event happens, another event, event happens to try to counterbalance it. So basically, um, first of all, just some background about myself. I'm a Vedic astrologer of 30 plus years standing. Uh, I have had some journalism training. I also had some sociology and history training as an undergraduate. I also have an MBA, which doesn't necessarily mean I'm um, I'm right wing or pro business. And I also have a doctoral degree in education, which doesn't mean I'm left wing or pro government. Okay, so the two don't necessarily go hand in hand. Um, the so I've written for a number of journals. I've done a number of broadcasts. I've done a number of conferences. I've held a number of positions in astrological organizations. I teach at Kepler College. I also teach at Dyer Academy. I also teach at the American College of Vedic Astrology. I also teach one-on-one if somebody wants to come aboard as a student. I'm also planning to open my own school shortly. Uh, I've encountered numerous delays over the past few years, some of which were my fault, some of which were circumstances beyond my control, but it will get started this year. I'm also in the process of writing a book, which has been long overdue, on Vedic astrology. I have some unique perspectives I don't share with other Vedic astrologers. Not that they're wrong and I'm right. I just think it's useful for people to hear as many um, useful analytical and remedial techniques as they can and make their own decisions for themselves. So that's my bias. And I can also give you, quote unquote, the wisdom of my years of practice. Uh, I just want to mention my good friend James Braha, whose book The Braha Sutras has come out. It's been getting good reviews, and I recommend it to anybody interested in Vedic astrology. The other thing is, I did have a broadcast with my friend Lolita Donatella last week. It was very favorably received, and we'll be doing it again shortly. Again, the scheduling issues have been on my part, not on Lolita's part, and I hope to get additional guests on board over the next few months. So maybe we'll see some quote unquote big names in the Vedic astrology community on this particular channel. I am hoping to go to a better facility than this, although the Aurora Borealis is really kind of nice as a background. And I'm also I think I also said this. I'm a Swami of the Temple of Kriya Yoga and the lineage of Kriya Yoga. And I've also I've written a lot. I've been president of the Council of Vedic Astrology, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so I've been around, like a bad penny, I keep showing up. And so um, so I just wanted to share with you a little bit of background before we got into the charts this week. And also, I wanted to keep in mind we have an eclipse coming up this coming week. Actually today. And I'm not doing anything important. I'm recording. Okay, so I'm not engaging in any external activity. I'm not starting anything today. And that's important. It's essentially considered to be bad luck to do anything or to start anything or to make any major purchase during an eclipse. I think that's a little bit exaggerated, but we do pay attention to the people who come before us. And today is actually a good day. Over the next week, it's a good day to worship your ancestors or people who come before you, because Saturn is very powerful today. And also, just a heads up, May 3rd, very good day for starting any kind of major activity. May 3rd, the sun is exalted, the moon is exalted. That happens a few times a year when the sun and the moon are in good signs, but this is actually one of the best times of the year, around May 3rd, to start things. Now this year is a little bit funny because, or a little bit off, because the sun is in the same sign with Rahu in the North Lunar Node. And for those of you who followed these broadcasts before, and even for those of you who haven't, Rahu is a bitter enemy of the sun and the moon. So this particular Amavasya is starting really, or this particular auspicious day, excuse me, is starting really close to an eclipse. And the sun itself is afflicted by Rahu. Now that can be detrimental to the significations of the sun in terms of confidence. It can also inflate confidence a great deal. So just be a little bit mindful that the sun is a really powerful planet. It's in its exaltation sign. It's really strong. But Rahu and Ketu essentially, they dominate pretty much everything in the chart. Their effect is transitory, but they are pretty much the most powerful beings or entities in the chart, at least of the lunar nodes. And the reason they're considered so powerful is because they can swallow the two largest objects in the sky, the sun and the moon. Also, as I'm talking with you, May 1st, the sun, Venus, and Jupiter are together in the same sign. So right now, Venus has been engaged in what's called planetary war with Jupiter, and Venus is winning planetary war right now. After tomorrow, Jupiter will be winning planetary war because Venus will move past it. And you'll see a different kind of a scope to things happening. But so there'll be more focus on following orthodox paths, realigning with tradition, etc., etc. So one thing to look out for, I'm going to show you the chart for today. And I'm going to put this up a couple of times because this is all often where things, and I do have Elon Musk's chart up there, and we'll look at his chart in a little bit. So it's April 30th. Let me just, again, I'm going to stop the share and go right back to it because this is where the first share almost never works. Okay, so we're back on the screen, and I'm going to try it for a third time because I'm a little bit paranoid about this. So we're going to start the share again. All right, so that, hope with any luck, that should be good. All right, so essentially, so you see Venus and Jupiter up here in this little corner of the world. And so Venus is at 3 degrees, 9 minutes of in Pisces, and Jupiter's at 3 degrees, 40 minutes in Pisces. So that's a technically planetary war. So right now Venus is winning, and Venus is actually within a couple of days you'll actually see Venus become much stronger than Jupiter, um, even though it's winning planetary war temporarily, because you'll have Venus moving towards its exaltation point in Pisces. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is on May 3rd, when the sun is here and moon is in Taurus, which is the moon's exalted placement, the Lord of Taurus will be over here exalted. So it's a particularly strong combination for publicity, for doing public good, for doing media work, those kinds of things. It's not going to be so good for governments. It's not going to be so good for, and you'll see governments trying to exert more and more control and being frustrated by it for at least another couple of weeks. And that's mainly because the sun's thwarted by Rahu. Okay. So essentially you'll see more and more governmental power, or more and more what I would call overreaching governmental power, or more and more defeats to government entities, at least until the sun enters Taurus after May 15th. And I still think that trend that I've spoken about before, where more and more governments coming under fire, will continue really much throughout the next year and a half. And that's in combination because Saturn's aspecting Aries, and it'll go back into Capricorn on July 2nd. But Saturn will aspect Aries, and Rahu will be in Aries really for the next year and a half. And that combination is really, it diminishes governmental authority, it diminishes governmental power, unless governmental power is seized. And so you'll see shakeups in several governments across the world. Not just the United States, but several governments across the world. The other thing to keep in mind is that Mercury's over here in Taurus, and it's aspected by Mars. So that means media in general are under attack. Media in general are not. It's always been interesting to me because certain things will come out during eclipses, and I realize I'm breaking my train of thought here, but certain things will come out during eclipses that really hadn't occurred before. And so a lot of stuff is coming out, both on really across the political spectrum internationally, that had been hidden, or successfully hidden over the past couple of years. But again, that Mars-Mercury combination is a political pattern. Media is being utilized for political purposes right now by both sides of the fence, by different autocrats, by different oligarchies. Okay, so this isn't a war of the people against government. This is a war we're witnessing between essentially two power centers. One power center likes the idea of control. The other one likes the idea of expansion or liberalizing markets. And I'm not viewing one as inherently superior to the other. They're different worldviews, and no matter who is in control, basically, you'll find that everything is geared towards maintaining income among a certain class of people. So a lot of these shifts are, I do favor one side over the other, but I think a lot of these shifts as they happen, tend not to favor, they tend not to do anything really profoundly to affect us down here at the street level, but they do affect how governments rule and how practices are formed. So interestingly enough, we have this Mars aspecting Mercury. That'll continue for about another couple of months, to be honest with you, just because Mercury is about to go retrograde around the 9th of May. So essentially Mercury will get so far, and we really won't be out of that particular mix really until around the end of June. But basically from this combination, I just want to talk a little bit about the Musk. And so let's look at Musk's chart just quickly. And this is an approximation. I haven't done a proper rectification on this. But this chart, this was by a fellow I know from Fall River. This rectification was done by a fellow, and I only approximated this rectification. I didn't, so I'll definitely give credit to him for that. As a matter of fact, he's one of the subscribers to this channel. So, oops, I didn't do it properly. I have to change it. Sorry, folks. I didn't change it. So I'm going for 8. 38. We'll give him no, it's a little bit later than that. Sorry. There's 9. There's 9. This would give Elon Musk a Cancer rising sign in an Aquarius logna in the Navamsha chart, which makes sense for him. Now, again, I haven't fine-tuned this, but he's in a Venus sub-period. Elon's Venus is really, really strong. It's in the 11th house of gains. Saturn aspects his first house. He's considered to be a very hardworking guy. Moon is in a house of wealth, is in a nakshatra, Purva Falguni, connected with great wealth. And his family was rich as well. So this is one of the reasons I think this chart works particularly well. If you had him, if you use the sun sign as a proxy for the rising sign, which you can do at times, his sun sign would also indicate great wealth from his family. Okay, so that's not necessarily, but this one is dramatic wealth, and he's also got Mars, exalted Mars, in the 7th house, towards the maximum degree of exaltation, close to the maximum degree of exaltation. Jupiter's in Scorpio, so he's kind of an inquisitive guy. And Saturn's and his 9th lord is in the 5th house. So that's considered to be a really good combination for luck, especially investment luck. And at least from this chart, I mean, it's probably a seldom known aspect of Vedic astrology, but Venus really likes the truth. As a planet, it really supports the truth. It supports truth telling. It's in the stories they tell about Jupiter. Jupiter often wins things through diplomacy or not that it's an untruthful planet, but he wins through diplomacy or wins through manipulation. so nobody gets hurt, but there is manipulation. Venus is always portrayed as being basically truthful. It's almost painfully honest. Okay, and um, so that Venus being so strong in that degree, aspected by Jupiter, that gives him good advantages in life. Okay, so he has both cunning and truth working on his side, and hard work. The guy is a hardworking guy. Saturn aspects his moon. That's one of the combinations for fame in the chart. And these combinations would exist no matter what rising sign we gave them. But this one seems to make a certain amount of sense. And just to digress for a second, I've always thought the Bill Gates chart should have been a Cancer rising sign, not a Gemini rising, because Bill Gates essentially, he was an innovator for sure, but he also got most of his wealth by squeezing other competitors out. So he was kind of an empire builder as well, and so is Musk. And that K2 in the first house is really what makes him a little bit of a rebel, or a little bit of a deviant, or kind of a visionary from other millionaires. So that'll make him essentially very independent and very self-directed, just not really caring what people think about him. So his chart, so he acquired this major communication system around April 27th, April 28th, and right around the same time we had United States chart as a Sagittarius rising. He's a Cancer rising, so he's going to be an enemy of, or at odds with the government. Let's put it that way, or at odds with governments. And if we go to the U.S. chart, U.S. chart has, so it's vulnerable to enemies right now, because of the sun being in the 5th house, involved with Rahu. There are no planets. Saturn's stopped aspecting Mercury, and it wants to exert a little bit more control. So let me just go back here a couple of days. So the Ministry of, I was going to say the Ministry of Truth, but that's a little bit unfair. The Ministry of, so anyway, anyone who's read 1984 knows what that's about. But I'm not painting the United States government in that particular picture. All right, so around April 28th, this ministry, or this group, emerged. So this happened during a K2 subperiod. So it's interesting that it happened. So it's essentially the mouthpiece of the United States government. K2 is the mouthpiece of the United States government, and is essentially intended to provide a critical eye. K2 is a critical planet towards news stories. So I think it's interesting. I don't think the timing of these two events was accidental. I don't think it was intended by these two particular parties to happen around this time. But I think it's interesting because right now what we're looking at is kind of a struggle over who controls the political dialogue, and Musk views it as being too one-sided. So Twitter alone won't resolve that, and the United States government views it as being packed full of misinformation because people are lying to, and using emotion to get people worked up. So I think this is kind of an interesting juxtaposition. All right, so we're in an eclipse cycle. A couple of things, and we're in a really strong Saturn cycle. A couple of things. as my good friend Lisa Donatel Rubeck indicated last week, always trust in Hanuman to help you out in terms of planetary affliction. So you can look up the Hanuman Chalisa, which is it's about a 9-minute video, and you can play that in the background. You can actually make offerings to Hanuman if you're close to a Hindu temple. Get a little statue of Hanuman in your house, give it flowers and light a little bit of ghee for it every day. Give it some fruit every day. The other thing you can do is the other remedy, and this works for Ketu as well as Saturn, is you can do worship of Ganesh. Ganesh is essentially like Saint Peter, the equivalent of Saint Peter as my rough analogy, in the Bible. So he determines who gets into heaven or not. And essentially Ganesha can help break down obstacles. The third important thing to do is, especially for Rahu, and especially if you can do it like really, really soon, it's best to do it when the moon is new, but get a little, and this was given to me by a Hindu priest, get some, so right now, essentially tonight would be the night to do it if you could, when I'm taping this, but if that's not possible, as soon as the new moon is possible, get some puff rice, some cheap alcohol, and get a little jar, like a little fruit or a relish jar. Put the puff rice in the jar, fill it about halfway up with alcohol, and then at midnight on a new moon, put the jar in a bag and take it down to a crossroads or 4 corners. Smash the jar on the corner, turn around, and don't look back. Just leave the jar there. It'll be in a paper bag. Nobody will get cut from the glass. Now, it's a good remedy for illusions being formed by Rahu. Okay. And also, one other Hindu deity you can look at, or if you're Christian, a Christian salvation you can look at would be Durga for the Hindus, or Saint Michael if you're Christian, or some kind of protector figure. So those would tend to be really, really powerful remedies for a lot of the afflictions that are happening right now. This Jupiter-Venus conjunction is extremely auspicious, but it does tend to cause a little bit of over-optimism. It's hemmed in between Mars and basically Rahu, not really the sun. The sun's really not considered a malefic. It really doesn't take part in the negative yogas. As a matter of fact, planets in front of or behind the sun tend to be relatively auspicious. They tend to be relatively good. But Rahu is a malefic. So essentially, during this period, it's a little bit better to take palliative measures against Rahu. So let's look at the chart for the week. So that's my tip for this week. I'll be giving you more tips. And if you want more information on this, just contact me. I can be reached at 508-525-0001. And by the way, if you like the video, please hit like, share the video, and we'll go from there. Okay, because we are trying to get to monetization. All right, so let's look at I don't have a lot of time, unfortunately, because I spoke a little bit too long about Musk and government. But we're gonna see some violent activity or some legal activity over New England, and all the way through the Midwest. So this is going to be a lot of inflationary pressure around here, and also some potential for violence. Also over Haiti and northern South America. You'll see governments overall. Yeah, there's a Mars line running right through here. So just be a little careful traveling, especially if you're in Ohio, Pennsylvania, that part of the world, Virginia, you know, and also down in Central America. There's a Mercury line running through or running close to England, and there's I need to move this over a little bit. A Saturn and Mars line are sort of encompassing England and France and Germany. So that's going to be a little bit difficult for that part of the world. You'll see a lot of governmental scandals, a lot of tightness in the economy. Inflation will be very high in Italy, Greece, Norway, and you'll also see extraordinary government actions around around Iran, Ukraine, Russia. Also, a lot of dissatisfaction, a lot of anxiety, a lot of lies coming out of Russia lately, which is not a really a big surprise. But also a lot of lies coming out of Ukraine. So I'm not letting you off the hook, but more lies coming out of Russia. And the conflict, it looks like, will continue. I hope I'm wrong about that, but it looks like it will continue. It looks like there'll be some fighting in China or in Russia itself, and also in far eastern India. And as we get over here to Jupiter and Venus, it looks like at least Vietnam's economy will start to get better or start to get a little bit more active. And the economy in Indonesia as well, and Australia will benefit a little bit. Moon and Sun are intersect over near Russia, not really that close to Japan, but again, and some panic. Again, inflationary pressure shows up from a lot of these combinations that won't go. That's really not going to go away really until early next year at the very earliest, and I'm not even sure then. And Saturn is going through New Zealand, so there'll be a start of a recession in Saturn in New Zealand. Also, the first quarter figures for the economy have come out. There has been a slight decline in gross domestic product, so pretty much everything's on track for a recession this year. And again, I wish I were telling you something else, but that's what it seems like is happening. So for charts, I'm going to do a really quick run through on charts because I didn't leave myself that much time, and I apologize to you guys for that. So let me just get the charts back up again. All right, so let me just stop the share. But yeah, I just want to say, because it looks like I have a little bit of time. And I didn't touch Hawaii. Hawaii is going to see a lot of inflationary pressure. A lot of government overreach in California and Oregon and Washington. Some people because this is close to Silicon Valley, some people in Silicon Valley are going to be jarred or upset over the next few weeks. And you will see some problems with scandals in government over the Western states. I forgot to mention that. And again, signs of a budding recession in over the Plains states. So again, like I said, not good news economically. I mean, essentially, We're kind of in a recessionary cycle right now. Government spending would help us out of it. Easing monetary policy would help us out of it. Supply chain, unlocking supply chains would probably have the most beneficial route, because when items are in short supply and you have too much money chasing after, this is like simple economics, extremely simple economics. That's what causes inflation. And if people can't buy products or can't get to products, basically you'll see economies start to slow down, and what the Fed is doing right now is they've essentially collapsed, or they've increased interest rates, so it's going to make it less attractive to buy things. But at the same time, it'll be a problem, because it won't necessarily affect prices, because prices are affected by scarcity. So it's sort of I didn't really like what they did in the late 70s, early 80s, because it essentially forced the economy into recession as a way of beating down inflation, and it really didn't help anybody. So the economy just kind of bumped along the bottom, and a lot of people suffered, except for people who had money market funds. So let's get back to your individual chart, though. And like I said, now I've left myself forward a little time. So Aries, be careful about overreach. Be careful about seeming too egotistical. You'll want to get a lot of stuff done. Mercury's in the second house. You'll have a potential for making a lot of money, but also for stirring up enemies. And K2's in the seventh house, so relationship life will seem a little bit strange or detached, but work life will be good. Venus and Jupiter are in the 12th house. That's actually okay for saving money. For Taurus, Mercury's in the first house, so this sign will be more concerned with commerce. Commerce, Lord of the House of Commerce, goes to the 11th house, so that's good for expansion of sales for your sign. So you'll be focused a lot on money this month, Taurus in particular. Work life again looks good, gains look good, but work will be extremely exacting. For Gemini is Lord is in the 12th house, so there'll be a lot of expenses for Gemini this week. Some problems with children show up again. Work life, though, it does look very good, and there'll be an expansion of work life, and the person will actually receive a great many honors and be loved by people, but they'll still be dissatisfied with their gains. For Cancer has Lord of the first house is in the 10th house along with the sun, so this is a good wealth producing combination, and also a good career producing combination. So this sign will be very popular, very much in the public eye. K2's in the 4th house. Mars and Saturn are in the 8th house. Some problems with property, and Venus is in the 9th house, but basically good luck to the sign and good career recognition and good gains. For Leo has Sun in the 10th house, so this sign will seem to be very out there, very domineering. And it's in the same sign with the moon, it'll be known internationally. K2's in the 3rd. That'll make it very courageous. Saturn and Mars are in the 7th. Relationships and business partnerships will not be that good. And finally, Venus in the 8th, there'll be legacies or gains financially. For Virgo, good opportunity for new partnerships, and also some frustration in terms of financial gains because of Rahu being in the 8th house. But still, there'll be good financial gains, especially after May 3rd. Also, this sign's Lord is in the ninth house, so it's going to do well over the next week and a half. And let me just see now. But again, it'll feel like it's struggling. It'll feel like it's really pushing against the tide to a certain extent. For Libra, K2's in Libra makes this sign very spiritual, very unconcerned about what happens to it or its reputation. Rahu's in the seventh house will make it a little bit greedy or a little bit more focused on partnerships. They'll want to be famous. The other positive thing, though, about the sign is there's a combination for wealth in the fifth house. The person works hard, and there's also a combination for overcoming enemies or obstacles just through diplomacy. So overall, it looks like a good week for Libra. For a Scorpio, Scorpio has planets in the fifth house, two benefic planets in the fifth house, very, very good. It'll have some anxiety over career and some fights at home, but basically it's a good time for this particular sign and some communications problems. For Sagittarius, Sagittarius has its Lord in the fourth house with Jupiter, so good educational opportunities, good wealth producing opportunities. Mars and Saturn are in the third house, unafraid to take chances, very calculated, very controlling period for this sign. And also Mercury's in the sixth house, so that'll give some fights or arguments with relationship partners. Some problems with children, but children will be famous or will be well known. And finally, going down to Capricorn. Capricorn finally has planets in the second house from it. So it's actually primed for some economic growth, although it'll be slow and tedious. Venus and Jupiter are in the third house. It'll win by diplomacy, but again, there'll be some anxiety over security. This sign doesn't like to not know what's happening. Mercury's in the fifth house, is in the sixth house, is in the fifth house. So that's good for gains through hard work and through luck. And K2's in the 10th house. So again, not much career recognition, but this sign doesn't care about that this much. It cares about power more so. Aquarius, Saturn and Mars are in the first house. It makes this sign kind of perfectionistic about itself, kind of worried about what people think about it, and also kind of worried about, kind of hesitant to take chances, mainly because of that Saturn-Mars combination. But it is a good combination for wealth for this sign. Pretty much all the good luck planets for both Capricorn and Aquarius are well placed. So Jupiter actually will bring in increased opportunities for money over the next year for this sign, but especially this particular month. And also the Moon, Sun, and Rahu are in the third house, so it'll be grabbing for fame or reaching for fame. Mercury's in the fourth, which is a good placement for it. It's in Venus's sign, so it should give better communications around home. And K2's in the ninth house, so it'll give some detachment or some release from work obligations. Finally, Pisces, which has that glorious Venus-Jupiter combination in the first house. Overall, a very good luck, a very good period for it, although it won't seem that lucky. It'll seem like there's always somebody finding fault, and there's not as much money to be spent. There's not as much drive to spend money, but you'll have to watch out for lending money to friends. And finally, K2's in Mercury's in the third, so it will give good relationship opportunities. K2's in the eighth, it'll give some problems in terms of legacies or getting investments or money that's owed to you. So these combinations can apply to the sun, the moon, the Amakaraka planet. There's a variety of the rising sign, also even in the Navamsha chart. So there are a variety of ways these particular combinations can manifest. In order to see how they'll manifest in your life, I recommend you get a reading, if not from me, from another Vedic astrologer, but hopefully from me. And I just see, I'm just looking at the time. So I want to say thank you again. I apologize if I went a little bit too fast, but I was trying to cover a lot. And please contact me if you want a reading, or if you want to study, or if you want information. My number is 508-525-0001. My email is neivas@comcast.net. And I look forward to hearing from you. And namaste, and I love you all. Thank you for watching. And again, please like, subscribe, share, and we'll get to where we need to go. There are more channels coming. There's more activity coming. So I'm definitely going to go into gear this July. Okay. All right. Thanks, folks. Have a great week. And I love you again. And I'm off.